The vampire king came back early. His maid whispered, "Don't move." Then the truth emerged. The castle had been quiet for centuries. Its walls, blackened with age and tangled ivy, loomed over the cliffside like a sentinel of forgotten time. Mist rolled off the cliffs into the valley below, swirling with secrets the world had long ceased to remember. Within those ancient halls, shadows moved with a life of their own, carrying whispers from one forgotten chamber to another. Elara, the king's maid, walked softly across the marble floors, her footsteps muffled by the thick carpets. Her hands clutched the folds of her dark dress as she carried trays of silverware and empty goblets. She had served the vampire king Lucian for longer than she could remember. Her life was a series of careful movements and hushed tones, a delicate balance between obedience and survival. She knew every echo of the castle, every creak in the wood, every hidden corner. Yet tonight, the familiar halls felt different. A sudden gust of wind rattled the windows, and the candle flames flickered, as if shivering. Bellara paused, her heart tightening. The wind did not come from outside. Somewhere deep within the castle, something stirred. "Don't move," she whispered to herself, pressing her back against the cold wall. Her eyes darted across the hallway, searching for the source of the sound. Footsteps, slow, measured, powerful. She froze. Lucian had returned. The vampire king was a figure both feared and revered across the kingdoms. Legends spoke of his ruthlessness, his long life, and the curse that bound him. To most, he was untouchable, merciless, a being whose shadow could swallow cities. To Elara, he had been something else entirely, distant, commanding, yet not devoid of humanity. She had served him in silence, keeping the castle running while the world outside whispered stories of his cruelty. Tonight, he was back earlier than expected. The rumors of his early return had reached the outer guards, but Elara had known before anyone else. Her instincts, sharpened by years of careful observation, had warned her. She held her breath as the heavy door at the end of the hall creaked open. He appeared, tall and imposing, a figure carved from shadow and moonlight. Lucian's eyes, dark and endless, scanned the hall. When they met hers, Elara felt a chill that had nothing to do with the castle's cold walls. She wanted to speak, to explain her presence, but her voice stuck in her throat. "Why are you here, Elara?" His voice was calm, almost gentle, but carried a weight that made her knees weak.
I was preparing the halls, she managed, her voice barely more than a whisper.
Lucian's gaze softened slightly, though a faint flicker of suspicion lingered. "You always prepare, yet never for yourself." "Why?" Elara's fingers tightened around the tray.
I only follow your orders, my lord." He stepped closer, and she felt the air shift around him, as if the darkness itself were bending to his will.
She could feel the subtle tension, the invisible line of power that he carried effortlessly. Yet beneath that command, there was curiosity. Something ancient and human lingered in him, rarely seen by others. "Curiosity," he murmured almost to himself, "is a dangerous thing in this castle." Before she could respond, a soft creak drew their attention. Elara's eyes widened. Behind the tapestry at the far end of the hall, a slight movement suggested a hidden passage. She had never noticed it before. Her pulse quickened. The castle held many secrets, but some were meant to remain undiscovered. Lucian followed her gaze, his expression unreadable. "You found something you shouldn't have," he said quietly. Elara's hand brushed against the fabric of the tapestry, her fingers trembling. Her heart beat so loudly she feared he might hear it. She hesitated. If she pulled it aside, the truth she uncovered could change everything. Yet curiosity, like Lucian had said, was dangerous. With a careful breath, she tugged the tapestry slightly. Behind it was a small chamber, its door hidden for centuries. Dust lay thick upon the floor, and the air smelled of old parchment and decay. In the center of the room rested a desk, upon which lay a single journal, bound in cracked leather. Its pages were yellowed, the writing fading but still legible. Elara stepped into the room, drawn by an invisible force. She opened the journal carefully. The handwriting was ornate and flowing, detailing events that had occurred long before her time. Stories of betrayal, loss, and a curse that had been cast upon the vampire king filled the pages. One passage in particular made her freeze. The heart that seeks love but fears its own shadow shall remain trapped for eternity. Only the truth can free it. A shiver ran down her spine. She had always known that Lucien carried a burden, a weight invisible to the world. Now she glimpsed the depth of it, the centuries of pain and solitude that no one had dared speak of. Suddenly the shadows in the room shifted. The candle flames flickered violently, and a chill swept over her. Elara spun around to see Lucien standing at the doorway, his presence commanding and still. He had followed her, silent as a shadow, yet she had sensed him too late. "Why are you here?" he asked again, his voice calm but layered with curiosity and something deeper, perhaps concern. Elara closed the journal, her hands trembling. I found this." "I didn't mean to." Lucien walked into the room, his eyes scanning the journal, then resting on her. "You were never meant to find this," he said, his tone unreadable. "And yet, perhaps you were." The air between them was heavy, charged with a tension that neither fear nor familiarity could explain. For centuries, he had lived with a curse, a silent prisoner of his own power. And now, before him, stood the one person who had always served him with unwavering loyalty, and yet had stepped unknowingly into the heart of his secret. "Why are you looking at me like that?" Elara whispered. Lucien did not answer immediately. Instead, he circled the room, his gaze lingering on the shadows, on the dust motes dancing in the candlelight, on the journal that had revealed so much. Then, slowly, he returned his eyes to hers. "Because I see you," he said finally, almost inaudible. "I see everything you try to hide." Elara swallowed, unsure whether she should feel fear or something else entirely. His words were not a threat, yet they carried power. Power over her heart, her thoughts, her very being. The castle itself seemed to respond to the moment. A low rumble echoed through the halls, like the building itself was stirring awake after centuries of sleep. Shadows lengthened, stretching toward the corners of the room, and the candle flames flickered again, casting their faces in gold and black. "Elara," Lucien said, stepping closer. "Do you understand what you hold in your hands?" She shook her head. I only know that it is important." "Important?" he echoed. "Yes." For a long moment silence fell between them, broken only by the soft whispers of the wind outside. The castle, vast and ancient, seemed to lean closer, listening. The weight of centuries pressed down upon them, a reminder that some truths, once uncovered, could not be hidden again. Elara felt her knees weaken. She wanted to speak, to confess her fear, her confusion, the strange pull she felt toward the vampire king who had always been untouchable, yet no words came. Lucien reached out, not to touch her, but to gesture toward the journal. "Read it," he said.
Learn what I have lived through.
"Perhaps it will teach you why I am the way I am." With trembling hands, Elara opened the journal again, the candlelight illuminating the faded letters. As she read, she felt the past pour into the present. The betrayal, the loneliness, the curse that had bound him for centuries. She realized that she had been living alongside a man imprisoned by his own immortality, a king whose heart had never truly been free. And then she saw it. A symbol etched in the corner of the page, glowing faintly in the flickering candlelight. Her breath caught. It was a mark she had seen before. In dreams she did not understand, a mark she had always assumed was a trick of the shadows. Her fingers traced the symbol, and the shadows in the room seemed to move closer. A whisper echoed through the chamber, soft and urgent. "Elara." She froze, her heart hammering in her chest. Lucien's voice, deep and commanding, broke the spell. "You are part of this, whether you wish it or not. The curse, it is not mine alone." Elara turned to him, her eyes wide with fear and awe. Part of it? What do you mean? He stepped closer, his presence overwhelming, yet strangely comforting. There are truths you were never meant to know. Until now, and the moment has come. The candle flames danced as if alive, casting long, flickering shadows across the walls. Outside, the wind howled through the cliffs, a mournful song that carried the weight of centuries. Inside, two hearts beat in silence, one human, one immortal, bound by fear, curiosity, and a secret older than either of them. Elara looked at Lucian, her mind racing, her heart trembling. I don't understand, she whispered. He smiled faintly, a shadow of warmth in his otherwise cold eyes. No, you do not. Yet soon, you will. And when the truth emerges, nothing will ever be the same again. She swallowed hard, feeling both fear and a strange, unnameable anticipation. The castle seemed to breathe around them, alive with secrets and shadows, aware that the first step toward the truth had been taken. And in that moment, as the candlelight flickered and the shadows seemed to whisper her name, Elara realized that her life, and the life of the Vampire King, was about to change forever. The journal trembled in her hands, the shadows in the room moved closer, and somewhere deep in the darkness the castle whispered a warning. The truth was only the beginning. The morning light fell through the tall arched windows of the castle, cutting pale streaks across the cold stone floors. Dust motes floated lazily in the beams, sparkling faintly as if holding a secret of their own. Elara moved through the halls with unusual quietness, her hands still trembling from the previous night's discovery. The hidden chamber, the journal, and the strange glowing symbol had left her mind in turmoil. She had expected anger from Lucian for uncovering his secrets. Instead, he had been curious. That thought alone both frightened and fascinated her. The Vampire King, ruler of the shattered castle, had always been a figure of terrifying authority. Yet here he was, his eyes soft with a strange intensity she had never seen before. Elara arrived at the great dining hall, where the scent of rich coffee and spiced bread filled the air. Lucian was already there, sitting at the head of the long table. The morning sun glinted off the silver candelabras, casting patterns like fractured stars across the floor. He looked up at her as she entered, his expression unreadable. "You've seen it," he said simply, as though the words carried no weight, yet they pressed on her chest. "Yes," she whispered, bowing slightly. "I found the journal." Lucian's gaze lingered on her for a moment longer than necessary. Then he motioned for her to sit across from him. Silence stretched between them like a living thing, and Elara struggled to find words. "You have questions," Lucian said finally, his voice calm but firm. "And I will answer, though some truths are dangerous. Are you prepared to hear them?" Elara swallowed hard. I must know." Lucian rose from his chair and walked to the window, hands clasped behind his back. The sunlight turned his dark hair into a halo of black and gold. "Long ago," he began, "I ruled a kingdom of beauty and power. My queen, my heart, was betrayed by someone I trusted. The betrayal was so deep, so cruel, that it bound me to a curse. I became this." He gestured at his form, tall, pale, and almost otherworldly, his eyes dark pools that seemed to contain centuries of pain. "Immortality is not freedom. It is a prison." Elara listened fascinated and horrified. She had known of the legends, of course, but hearing the truth from him, the man she had served for years, made the stories almost unbearable to comprehend. Why are you telling me this?" she asked softly. "Because," Lucian replied, turning his eyes upon her, "the curse is not mine alone. You, your family, unknowingly, played a part in it. And now that you have found the journal, you must understand your role." Her breath caught. "My family? I don't understand." He took a slow step closer, his presence filling the room. "Many generations ago, someone in your bloodline betrayed the queen I loved. That betrayal gave rise to the curse that has bound me. For centuries I have searched for the truth, for the one who could help me break it. And now I believe it is you." Alara's heart raced. Part of her wanted to flee, to deny the impossible. And yet something in her core told her that he spoke the truth. The symbol in the journal, the shadows that moved unnaturally in her presence. They all whispered of a destiny she had never imagined. "Me?" she whispered. "How? How could I possibly help?" Lucian's gaze softened, a faint flicker of warmth touching his otherwise cold eyes. "Because your blood carries a power that is older than the curse itself. You have the ability to cleanse what was broken, to return what was lost. But it is dangerous. You could be consumed by it if you are not careful." Elara swallowed, fear and determination warring in her chest. "Then I will try. I have to." He nodded slowly. "Good. But first you must understand the nature of the curse." Lucian moved to a side table, pulling a small silver box from beneath a velvet cloth. Inside lay a crystal, dark at the center yet glowing faintly at the edges. "This crystal contains the essence of the betrayal," he explained. "It feeds on pain, on sorrow, on fear. For centuries it has grown stronger, because the truth remained hidden. Only by facing it fully with courage can it be destroyed." Alara reached out tentatively. The crystal was heavier than she expected, its surface warm under her fingers. She could feel a faint pulse, almost like a heartbeat, resonating within it. She glanced at Lucian. "It is not just a relic," he said quietly. "It is a mirror of what we have lost. And it is connected to you." Alara's fingers trembled as she held it. Shadows seemed to gather around the edges of the room and the temperature dropped. Candle flames flickered wildly, casting moving patterns that seemed almost alive. "Be careful," Lucian warned. "The curse will test you. It will show you your fears, your doubts, your regrets. And it will seek to divide us, to make you doubt your own strength." Elara nodded, trying to steady her racing heart. She had served Lucian for years, obeying without question. Yet now she was being asked to step into a world of darkness and power she had never imagined, and to do so willingly. As she focused on the crystal, the shadows thickened, coiling around her like living smoke. Whispers filled the room, voices from the past, accusing, mourning, demanding. Elara's mind swirled with images, faces of the betrayed queen, the sorrowful king, and her own ancestors whose choices had shaped this destiny. Lucian stepped close, his presence a solid, reassuring weight. "Do not be afraid," he murmured. "I will be with you. But you must face this on your own." She nodded again, closing her eyes, and let the crystal guide her. A strange warmth spread from her hands into her chest, and the whispers grew louder, forming words she could almost understand. Pain, regret, sorrow, longing. It all poured into her, and yet, somehow, it felt like a puzzle that needed solving rather than a threat to her life. Hours passed, though time in the castle was strange and fluid. When she finally opened her eyes, the shadows had receded slightly, but the crystal still pulsed with faint energy. Lucian was watching her closely, his expression unreadable, yet softer than she had ever seen. "You are stronger than I imagined," he said quietly. "But this is only the beginning. The curse is deeper than the crystal. It reaches into the very heart of this castle, and into both of our lives." Elara looked at him, determination growing in her chest. "Then we face it together." Lucian's gaze softened further, and for the first time Elara thought she saw a trace of gratitude, even hope. "Yes," he said. "Together." The moment was shattered by a sudden violent noise. A door at the end of the hall slammed open, and shadows leapt across the walls as if alive. The temperature dropped sharply, and the candle flame sputtered. Elara instinctively stepped behind Lucian, her hands clutching his arm for support. A figure emerged from the darkness, tall and shrouded, its face hidden beneath a hood. The air felt charged with energy, and the shadow seemed to bend toward the figure. responding as if it were a master. "You should not meddle with what you do not understand," the figure said, voice echoing unnaturally through the hall. Lucian's expression hardened. "Who are you?" he demanded. "What do you want?" The figure raised one gloved hand, and the crystal in Alara's grasp vibrated violently, sending a shock of energy through her body. "The curse is not yet yours to break," the figure said. "One of you is not ready, and one of you carries a secret yet unknown." Alara's mind raced. Was it her or Lucian? Fear clutched her heart. The shadows pressed closer, whispering and sighing around them. Lucian stepped protectively in front of her. "Reveal yourself," he commanded. His voice rang through the hall, strong and unyielding. The figure did not move. Then, slowly, a hand lifted, pointing directly at Alara. "The key lies within her," the figure said, "but only if she can face the truth." Alara's chest tightened. Her blood seemed to burn with a strange warmth, the crystal vibrating in her hands. She realized the figure spoke the truth. She had been chosen, whether she wanted it or not. The curse, the shadows, the centuries of pain, they were all connected to her. Lucian turned to her, his eyes intense. "Do you understand what this means?" She nodded slowly. I must confront it, whatever it is." He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Then we do it together. But know this, once the truth emerges, nothing will be the same." The hooded figure vanished as suddenly as it had appeared, leaving only silence and the lingering weight of its warning. The castle seemed to breathe around them, aware that a step had been taken towards something monumental. Alara held the crystal tightly, her hands no longer trembling but steady with purpose. Lucian's presence beside her was a shield and a guide. She had discovered the curse, faced its first test, and understood that her life and the vampire king's would never return to what it had been. The shadows of the castle had awakened, and so had the truths buried for centuries. And somewhere deep in the walls, in chambers untouched by time, a whisper seemed to echo just for her. The truth is only the beginning. The castle had changed since the morning. Shadows seemed thicker in every corner, stretching longer than they should. The corridors whispered in languages Alara could not understand, soft hissing murmurs that made her skin crawl. Even the walls felt alive, resonating with a weight that pressed on her chest. Alara walked beside Lucian, her steps careful, each echo amplified in the grand halls. The crystal from the hidden chamber hung around her neck now, a faint warmth against her chest. She could feel it pulsing with energy, almost like a heartbeat, connected to the curse that bound the vampire king. "Are you certain you can handle this?" Lucian asked, his voice low and cautious. The shadow of centuries hung in his tone. Alara's eyes met his. "I have to. I can't let it continue. Not for you, not for anyone." He nodded slightly, a rare softness in his gaze. "Then we move forward, but the castle will test us. The shadows are alive with the curse. They will show you what you fear most, and they will try to turn us against each other." Alara swallowed, feeling the weight of his words. She had always known the castle was not ordinary, but now she truly understood its danger. It was not just walls and corridors. It was a living guardian of secrets and pain, a creature born of betrayal and sorrow. They entered the east wing, where the air grew colder and heavier. Candles flickered, though no draft disturbed them, casting long, twisted shapes on the walls. Lucian held a hand toward her, a silent warning. "Do not stray. The shadows can take forms that deceive the mind. Trust only what is real." Back downhill. Alara's breath caught as the first shape emerged. From the corner of the hallway, a figure rose, translucent and twisting. It was her mother, or someone who resembled her face pale and sorrowful, eyes filled with regret. "Alara," the figure whispered, voice echoing as if from far away. "Why did you leave? Why did you choose him?" Alara recoiled. "This isn't real," she murmured. But the figure advanced, shadows curling around its feet like smoke. Her heart raced, but she clutched the crystal against her chest. Lucian stepped forward, eyes blazing. It is a test. Face it. Do not flee. Elara took a deep breath. I am not afraid. She stepped toward the shadow. The figure froze, its expression shifting from sorrow to despair. Then it dissolved, melting into the darkness, leaving only whispers that faded into silence. Lucian's hand rested briefly on her shoulder. Good. Courage will guide you further than fear ever could. They continued deeper into the east wing, where the castle itself seemed alive, breathing in slow, deliberate pulses. Tapestries fluttered as though in windless air, and floor tiles shifted subtly beneath their feet. The walls whispered their secrets. Betrayals, regrets, lost loves, all interwoven into a tapestry of sorrow.
Elara, Lucian said, pausing in a dim chamber. The curse did not begin with me alone. It was born of a betrayal centuries ago, one that involved both my queen and someone in your lineage.
That is why the shadows respond to you. That is why the crystal pulses when you hold it. Elara's eyes widened. My lineage? My family? He nodded. Yes, you carry a part of the past that is entwined with mine. Your blood has the power to heal what was broken, to lift the shadows that have bound me. But it will demand courage, strength, and truth, all of which will be tested here. A sudden gust of wind extinguished the candles. Darkness filled the room, thick and heavy, and whispers rose from the corners like a rising tide. Shadows gathered into shapes, forming grotesque versions of familiar faces, friends and foes alike, twisted by the curse into beings of fear. Elara! Lucian's voice cut through the dark, calm but commanding. Do not let them touch you! Trust in yourself. Trust in the light within you. The shadow surged, pressing against her mind, showing visions of failure, of pain, of Lucian falling and herself powerless to help. She felt the crystal grow warm, almost hot, against her chest. Closing her eyes, she focused, letting the pulse guide her thoughts. Memories of loyalty, courage, and love surged forth. The shadow screamed, twisting and lashing at her mind, but she held firm. A shadow lunged toward her, taking the form of the queen whose betrayal had begun the curse. Elara raised her hands instinctively, and the crystal glowed bright white. The figure froze, then dissolved into mist. The castle seemed to sigh in relief, the heavy air lifting slightly. Lucian stepped close, eyes shining with both admiration and concern. You are stronger than I imagined, but this is only the beginning. The curse runs deeper. Elara's fingers tightened around the crystal. I'm ready, she said firmly. Whatever it takes, I'll face it. They moved to the heart of the castle, the oldest part, where the curse's energy pulsed strongest. The walls here were blackened with age and burnt memories, the floor cracked with centuries of magic. The air felt alive, almost breathing. Here the shadows did not take shapes of the past. Instead, they became creatures of pure darkness, moving with speed and intent. Lucian drew himself up, a figure of authority and strength. Stay close, he warned. These shadows feed on fear, doubt, and hesitation. One misstep, and they can overwhelm you. Elara nodded, determination stealing her heart. The crystal pulsed brighter, resonating with the castle itself. She realized that it was not only a key to breaking the curse, it was also a shield, a guide, and a mirror of her own strength. The shadows lunged. Elara and Lucian moved together, a perfect combination of human courage and vampire strength. She focused on the crystal, letting its light extend outward, dissolving the darkness. Lucian struck with precision, sending the remaining shadow creatures scattering into the walls. Finally, silence fell. The chamber was still, but the air remained thick with power. Elara's chest heaved, her hands gripping the crystal. Lucian stepped toward her, placing a steady hand over hers. You did well, he said softly. But there is one truth you have yet to see. The curse, it is tied to both of us, not just me. There is a secret you carry in your blood, something you have yet to understand. Elara's heart skipped a beat. My blood, what secret? Before Lucian could answer, The crystal in her hands flared with light, brighter than she had ever seen. Shadows in the corners shrieked and twisted, and a voice whispered, ancient and commanding, face the truth or be consumed. Elara staggered, almost dropping the crystal. Lucian caught it just in time, holding it steady between them. Whatever you see, do not look away, he said. Do not doubt yourself. Her eyes widened as the light from the crystal grew and filled the chamber. She saw visions, not just of the past, but of choices, betrayals, courage, and love intertwined across centuries. Faces of her ancestors, Lucian's queen, and herself appeared, revealing the threads that connected them all. She saw that the curse was not only about punishment, it was about understanding, forgiveness, and healing. But among the visions, one image froze her blood, a figure from the shadows, a twisted reflection of herself, reaching out, eyes burning with anger and accusation. The voice whispered again, "You are the key and the danger." Lucian stepped closer, his presence anchoring her. "You are not alone," he said. "You never have been. But the choice is yours. You can face the truth, or let the shadows win." Elara's hands trembled. She had faced fear before, obeyed commands, survived long nights of loneliness in the castle. But this was different. This was her destiny, entwined with Lucian's in ways she had never imagined. She could feel the pulse of the curse through her veins, its energy both frightening and empowering. Summoning every ounce of courage, she focused on the crystal, letting it draw out the shadow's power. The twisted figure in the vision screamed, its form dissolving in light. The chamber shook, the walls groaning as the energy released. Lucian's voice cut through the roar of the castle. "Hold fast! You are stronger than it knows." Elara's determination solidified. She let the crystal shine, letting its light flow through her, through the castle, through centuries of pain. Slowly, the darkness recoiled, dissipating into mist. Silence followed, heavy but calm, as if the castle itself exhaled after a long, painful century. She looked at Lucian, and for the first time, she saw him as more than a vampire king. She saw a man who had suffered, who had loved and lost, who had carried centuries of pain alone. And she realized that together, they could face the truth and survive. Lucian reached for her hand. "You have done what few could," he said, his voice soft. "But the heart of the curse remains. There is one final secret, one that could change everything." Elara's pulse quickened. "What is it?" Before he could answer, the shadows in the chamber stirred again. This time they were different, deeper, more intelligent, more deliberate. A dark wind swept through, extinguishing the candles. A whisper echoed, cold and deliberate. "One of you will fall, unless the truth is embraced fully." Elara's eyes met Lucian's. Their hands touched and a bond formed. Stronger than fear, stronger than the shadows. "Together," she whispered. "Together," he echoed. And with that, the castle itself seemed to brace, holding its breath. The final truth, the one that could break the curse forever, was waiting for them. The castle was silent, but the silence was thick with expectation. Every shadow clung to the corners of the halls, every whisper of wind through the high windows carrying an unspoken warning. Elara and Lucian stood at the heart of the castle, where the curse had pulsed strongest for centuries. The crystal hung from Elara's neck, glowing softly, a beacon in the darkness. Lucian's dark eyes met hers, and in that gaze she saw everything. Centuries of loneliness, pain, and unspoken longing. "Are you ready?" he asked softly, his voice both command and comfort. Elara swallowed, her fingers brushing the crystal. "I am. Whatever comes, I face it." He stepped closer, a shadow among shadows, and placed a hand lightly on her shoulder. "Then let us begin." The chamber responded immediately. Walls groaned as if awakening from a long sleep. Shadows stirred, curling and twisting, forming shapes that had haunted the castle for generations, twisted reflections of betrayal, pain, and sorrow. But now, they seemed aware of Alara's presence, aware of her courage. "Focus on the light within you," Lucian instructed, his voice low but firm. "Let it guide the crystal. Do not let the shadows deceive you." Alara inhaled, steadying herself. She could feel the pulse of the castle beneath her feet, the rhythm of centuries of suffering and fear. The crystal vibrated against her chest, warm and insistent. Closing her eyes, she let her thoughts flow through it. Memories of courage, love, loyalty, and hope. The shadows hissed, recoiling slightly at the strength of her resolve. A dark shape lunged forward, a figure resembling the queen who had once betrayed Lucian. Its eyes burned with sorrow and accusation. Alara lifted the crystal, and a beam of radiant light shot forth, cutting through the darkness. The figure screamed, twisting and dissolving into mist. "Keep going," Lucian urged, moving beside her. "Do not falter." Another shadow emerged, this one taking the form of her ancestors, accusing her, warning her of failure. Alara's chest tightened, doubt creeping in. I can't," she whispered. Lucian gripped her hand firmly. "Yes, you can. You are not alone. The curse has been waiting for you, but you are stronger than it knows. Trust yourself." Her resolve strengthened. She raised the crystal higher, and light poured from it, filling the chamber with brilliance that chased the shadows to the corners. The whispers of the castle shifted from accusation to warning, as if it recognized her courage but challenged her still. Suddenly the shadows coalesced into a single enormous figure, darker than anything she had seen. It pulsed with power, twisting reality around it. The crystal vibrated violently against her chest, and she felt the energy of the curse pressing down, trying to overwhelm her. Lucian stepped forward, his presence commanding. "You are ready, Alara. Face the truth fully. Embrace it." Her mind opened to the visions that poured forth. The betrayal of centuries past, the pain of lost love, the suffering of countless lives intertwined with the curse. But among the visions, she saw something else, the potential for forgiveness, healing, and redemption. The enormous shadow shrieked, sensing her determination, trying to twist her fear into power against her. But Alara held the crystal steady, letting its light flow through her, through the castle, through centuries of darkness. The shadow hesitated, then shrank, dissolving into mist as the chamber trembled. Light filled every corner, and for a moment, the castle seemed to hold its breath.
Lucian's voice broke the silence.
"You've done it, but one final truth remains." Alara's heart pounded. What is it?" He stepped closer, placing a hand on the crystal. "The curse was never just about punishment. It was about understanding, forgiveness, and love. It sought to bind me to my past, to keep me imprisoned in centuries of pain. But you, your courage, your heart, have given it a chance to be broken. And now it is time to release it fully." Alara felt warmth surge from the crystal, spreading through her body into Lucian's presence beside her. The castle itself seemed to respond, shaking slightly as if exhaling a long-held breath. Shadows melted into light, and the oppressive weight of centuries lifted. "Lucian," she whispered, her voice trembling. It's ending." He looked at her, eyes soft, no longer filled with centuries of guarded pain, but with awe and something warmer, hope, gratitude, and a quiet love that had taken 100 years to surface. "Yes," he said. "It ends because of you, because of your courage, because of your heart." The crystal glowed one final time, then dimmed, leaving only a faint shimmer around her neck. The shadows that had haunted the castle were gone, replaced by a calm that felt almost sacred. The halls no longer whispered with anger, only with memory. Alara turned to Lucian, searching his eyes. "Is it truly over?" He nodded, a rare smile softening his usually stern features. "Yes, the curse is broken. We are free at last." For the first time in centuries, Lucian moved without the weight of the curse pressing on his shoulders. He reached out, taking her hands in his. "Elara," he said, voice low and intimate, "you have not only freed me, but yourself. You have proven that strength is not only in power, but in courage, compassion, and heart." Tears filled her eyes as she met his gaze. "I couldn't have done it without you," she whispered. He shook his head gently. "No, you did it entirely. I only walked beside you." The chamber seemed to hum with quiet celebration. The air was lighter, almost golden, as if sunlight itself had entered the castle, despite the high stone walls. The centuries of sorrow, betrayal, and pain had been transformed into a new energy, one of hope and renewal. Lucian led her to the balcony, where the first rays of dawn lit the valley below. Mist still lingered among the cliffs, but it no longer carried menace, only beauty. They stood together, the castle behind them silent and watchful, as if acknowledging their triumph. "Elara," Lucian said softly, "you have changed more than the castle. You have changed me. I have been alone for centuries, and yet, now, I see that life can be shared, that love can exist without fear." Elara's hand found his.
"I was afraid at first," she admitted, "but—"
"Being with you, facing everything together, I've learned courage, hope, and love." He turned toward her, the wind brushing strands of hair from her face. "Then let us walk forward together, not as master and servant, not as king and maid, but as equals, bound by trust and heart." A soft smile curved her lips. "Yes, together." They stood there hand in hand, watching the valley awaken beneath them. Light spread across the cliffs, golden and red. And the castle seemed to glow with a warmth it had not known for centuries. But even as they felt the relief of victory, a small, distant shadow flickered across the cliffs. It moved swiftly, almost unseen, a reminder that some mysteries never fully fade. Lucian noticed it too, his gaze sharpening. "The past may be gone, but the world still holds secrets," he said quietly. Elara nodded, her fingers tightening around his. "Then we face them together," he smiled faintly, a mixture of pride, admiration, and something tender. "Yes." Together, for the first time, they allowed themselves to breathe, to feel the warmth of the sun on their faces, the gentle breeze across the cliffs. The curse had ended, but the lessons of courage, trust, and love would remain. And somewhere deep in the castle, in chambers untouched for centuries, the walls seemed to hum a quiet song of triumph, a reminder that even the darkest shadows could be transformed by light. Elara looked at Lucian, her heart full. "Do you think we can truly be free now?" Lucian's dark eyes softened. "Yes. Free to choose, free to feel, free to live. The curse has bound us no longer. Our hearts are our own." She leaned slightly against him, and he wrapped an arm around her shoulders. The world beyond the castle was still vast, still filled with unknowns, but for the first time they faced it together, unafraid, unbroken, and united. The dawn spread across the valley, painting the world in gold and crimson, and for a brief moment the castle seemed less a fortress and more a home. A home for two hearts that had endured centuries of shadows and emerged stronger, bound not by fear, but by love, courage, and trust. The crystal lay between them, faintly glowing, a silent reminder of the journey they had taken. And though the shadows had faded, their bond would shine forever, illuminating even the darkest corners of the past.